What happened in school that still pisses you off when you think about it today? A girl I went to high school with went to the counselor's office saying that she needed to talk to someone, that her dad was acting strange, and she was scared to go home. She was sent away, as her counselor was on lunch. However, her counselor was in plain view of her, and she demanded she be heard. The school got involved and suspended the girl for causing a disturbance. That night she and her little brother were shot and killed by their father, a day before her parents' divorce was to be finalized. That still haunts me. I was in 5th grade when one of my teachers let a diabetic girl go into a coma and die in the classroom. The girl was my next door neighbor, and our parents were friends. That morning, she was sick. As soon as she got off the bus, she asked the teacher to call her dad, so she could go back home. The teacher told her that her dad wouldn't have sent her to school if she were sick. When she persisted, the teacher made her go sit in the classroom by herself with her head down on the desk. I reminded the teacher that her dad said she always had to eat breakfast because she was diabetic, but the teacher told me that if she was too sick to be at school, she was too sick to have anything to eat. I didn't know any better, so I let it go. When our first class started, my neighbor never lifted her head up. Not once. My sister raised her hand and asked about her because we'd been told to go get her dad if she ever acted sleepy when she shouldn't. The teacher told the entire class she was playing sick and to leave her alone. When she started gurgling, the teacher put on classical music to hide the noise. We were in our seats until lunchtime. As soon as the bell rang, my sister grabbed my shoulder and told me to call mom and tell her I was sick so she'd come to get me. That way we could get her to check on the neighbor. By then, they'd discovered she wasn't faking. They carried her downstairs and out of service in trance so the students wouldn't see. They had the ambulance come to the back playground, claiming that's where she collapsed at. They told everybody she died at the hospital. The school blamed it on a bee sting that happened when she went out for fresh air. But her dad had an autopsy done, and the cause of death was complications of diabetes. She wasn't even allergic to bee stings. And the gurgling sound we heard, and the teacher masked, was a death rattle. The MFN teacher killed her, and got away with it. And the administration helped her cover up her cruelty. My English teacher senior year underlining a word I used in a paper, and wrote in red, "These are not your words. Bitch, it's called a thesaurus." And I was taught to use it instead of writing the same word repeatedly. Bahahaha. That reminds me when my English teacher sophomore year had us write a paper on prohibition. I wrote a good 5-page paper. The teacher told me it clearly wasn't my work as it was too well written for a sophomore. I told her, if she doesn't believe me, run it through their plagiarism checker. She did, and it came back with 4%. Her response? I told you it was plagiarized. 4% match. I looked at her like she was a peeping idiot. Even my college expects at most 20%. I got a 0 on a final exam for cheating. The class in question? Art 1. We were drawing hands, and a kid near me talked. Asshole teacher thought it was me and gave me a 0 for cheating. How the actual peep do you cheat at drawing? Well, first you have a super insecure teacher. Then you'd be better at drawing than the teacher thinks someone your age should be. I had to pee. Then I asked to go to the restroom. The substitute full-time teacher for another class said, "You don't have to pee. Just sit down." After a bit more pleading and begging, I just peed my pants. I was 8 and totally mortified. What made it worse is that the teacher told my parents that I should have spoken up earlier and accidents happen. I still think I should have peed on her desk. Something like this happened when I was in high school. The kid just pulled a garbage can to the corner and pissed in it. We had a pregnant girl in one of our classes and she needed to pee. She told the teacher and the teacher told her she should have kept her legs closed and she wouldn't need to pee so badly. She stood up, walked over to the door, peed in her pants in front of it, and walked out. He got fired because she had a medical reason for needing to have constant bathroom breaks. I don't understand how some of these teachers can justify saying such terrible things to children. They're actually just assholes. The kind of people who need to bully children to feel good about their miserable lives. We had this multicultural fair at my elementary school and the faculty wanted a Japanese kid to do origami at the Japanese station. I was the only kid that knew origami. I was, and still am, Filipino. So, they had me pretend to be Japanese and do the paper cranes and frogs and speep. It was just ridiculous. If they did that now, speep would hit the fan. My CSBE teacher did that this year, that she was getting people to hold up their national flags and get the only 2 black, 1 Irish, 1 Tanzanian kids in the class to hold up the flag of Nigeria, which is even worse when you consider a big part of her job was teaching against racism. Was once accused of cheating/collusion on a homework assignment, as 5 of us all have the same incorrect answer. The other 4 were guilty, but I was not. Stayed behind to prove that my/our answer was correct and that the teacher was wrong. He gave it a cursory glance and said, well, that still doesn't prove you didn't cheat. The worst thing is when an authority figure tries to save face for an accusation. Like, for example, you cheated on your test with John. But I'm on the other side of the room. That, doesn't prove anything. A couple weeks into my freshman year, I transferred into a more advanced science class. On my first day in the new class there is a quiz. I asked the teacher if I was exempt from the quiz, since it was my first day. She said no. I did well, especially for not having been taught any of the material. Here's what bugged me. The final question on the test was, what country is ticket from? Of course I got it wrong. The sentence doesn't even make sense. She wouldn't give me any clarification during the test. So once it was graded I asked what in the world she meant. Turns out ticket is her pet bird. Ticket. For 1. Capitalize the name of your pet. Also, that's not an appropriate test question. I told the teacher I had no idea that was her bird. She said, well, now that you know I'm talking about my bird, I'll give you another chance. What country is my bird from? I was stunned that she thought I was now equipped to answer this question. I wasn't in class to hear her reveal where her bird was from. I guessed something like Chile. She says wrong. It's Africa. Africa? That's not a country. I was so mad. She also arrogantly proclaimed every so often for the first few weeks, if anyone spotted her making an error, they get an instant A for the year. I can't count how many times I busted her in class, but she never stuck to her word. Last of all, some random girls I didn't even know told the teacher I taught the bird swear words, and I got in trouble for that. I never said a word, much less swear words, to her bird. I was fortunate enough to have a teacher who was almost the opposite. If she made a mistake and someone caught it, she would give us candy and just generally say things that made you feel good about knowing the subject. To take it a step further, there were times when she would make mistakes on purpose just to test if we were paying attention. If no one caught it after enough time, she would go back and correct it and even do a little mini lesson on the mistake in case we didn't catch it because we didn't grasp the concept. Miss Graves was one of my favorite teachers in high school. In 6th grade we had to write an essay at the beginning of the school year if we wanted to be on flag duty. There were 3 6th graders who were in charge of going outside and running the flag up the pole every morning and taking it down at the end of the school day. I had just come to the school the year before, and it was a very tight-knit small school, and I was a sci-fi nerd who was decidedly not cool. I knew it then too, and overcompensated by trying way too hard, which is the least cool thing you can do. I wrote an essay about how my father was in Vietnam and the flag reminded him of home. How my grandfathers had gone to Germany and the Pacific in WW2, and what the flag meant. About my ancestors, who fought under that flag and a different flag in the Civil War. And how 2 of my great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers had fought in the revolution to establish that flag. I wrote about how from 13 stars to 50, through challenges within and without, my family had served their country. Regardless, I wasn't selected. You win some, you lose some. So at the end of the year, we are graduating from 6th grade and moving to junior high. This kid, Andy, who is one of the ones who was on the flag crew and was one of the cool kids, walks up to me just before the presentation and says, "Hey, you're going to get a certificate for being on the flag crew. We were supposed to tell you the second week of school, but we didn't." As a kid who wanted to be a writer, I had spent the whole year thinking my persuasive essay wasn't good. It was just this FPeeper not wanting me to be there when he and his friend went out and did the flag. FPeep you and D. In 8th grade, my math teacher told me I hadn't turned in an assignment. A small enough thing, no? Well, I had done said assignment, but decided to do it again so that I could get the grade for it, since he apparently didn't have it. And I turn it into the silly paper tray where we have to turn in our assignments. He refused to take them directly. Days pass, and he pulls me aside again. "Where's the assignment?" he asks me. I turned it in. I say, "I don't have it. You need to turn it in." At this point I'm pretty irritated, but since he's stubborn and tells me to turn it in again, I do it yet another time and turn it in again. Weeks pass. This literally happened 6 more times. He still doesn't have the assignment and has been getting more and more angry at me every time he brings it up. I tell him that I turned it in and he should check his papers. He simply tells me I haven't turned it in and to stop lying to him. The entire grade is having a party to celebrate the upcoming graduation from 8th grade. I can't go since I'm missing the one assignment. Instead I have to do the assignment yet again. I do it. He finally takes it with his own damn hands and not with a paper tray. Credit is given. A few weeks later he's cleaning out his papers. All of them are haphazardly tossed into milk crates. He says that we can come and grab all of our papers that we've had graded, since they and other things are in there. I go to look in the milk crates. And there, Reddit, I found 9 copies of that assignment total. Ungraded. Sitting in random papers that were literally 2 feet behind him at any given time. I got shouted at for weeks over a single assignment that he never bothered to look at and wouldn't look for when I told him I turned it in. When I showed him the 9 copies he had in his own possession, he just looked at me and said, "Okay. TL. Doctor, I got yelled at for not turning in an assignment I had turned in 9 times total, and missed a class-wide party because of it. And when he found literally every copy in random crap at his desk, he didn't even apologize." This happened to me in grade 5. My teacher was notorious for losing papers, and she had us turn in heaps of them at once. So I turned in all of mine, and the next week she pulls me aside and tells me she doesn't have any of my papers. Says I have to stay in from recess every day until I get them done. So what does little 10-year-old me do? She forgets. I come in after recess and she's yelling at me, telling me she's going to give me a detention. Says I can't audition for the school musical because I'll be too busy making up the papers. Luckily I had a mother who would not tolerate me being made to cry in front of my classmates for something that wasn't my fault. I went home and told her, and she just calmly asked, "Do you promise you turned everything in?" I said yes, and she called the school. My mother was in PTA and very active in the school's fundraisers and stuff. Basically she ran everything that wasn't run directly by the school. She said if this issue couldn't be resolved then she and I could move to a new school. The teacher finally admitted what she did, and to this day 10 years later, she has to sign slips of paper and hand them back to students for every assignment they hand in. This was in November, but I don't remember her speaking to me for the rest of the school year, which ended in June. This one crazy ass teacher punished someone and treated him like a delinquent for the whole school year because this kid yawned at him. My Spanish teacher in high school would get upset with anyone that yawned in class. She thought it was extremely disrespectful and rude. Couple of kids got detention over it. She treated yawning as if you were projectiles peeping onto her desk. We had one of those too. She would freak the peep out if anyone yawned. I never understood it. This is one of those weird hot buttons for me. Who on earth ever yawns on purpose? Why would anyone think that they do, let alone that they'd use one to make some public statement with it? My stepfather was severely physically abusive, and I got called to the guidance counselor's office often to explain the bruises. I would tell her what had happened. She'd call my mother. My mother would arrive, tell everyone I was a liar, and that I bruised myself for attention. And the GC always bought it and sent me home. Eventually I just stopped telling her anything other than I was clumsy, because the beatings were always worse when the school called my parents. Edit. Seriously. Thanks for the supportive words. I had no idea so many of us had SPEEP parents and SPEEP guidance counselors. And no, I never beat the SPEEP out of him back. Didn't have to. He was in an accident at work that left him a drooling vegetable. Calm as a bitch. My parents are abusive. Calls parents to come in and takes their denial as gospel. SPEEP counselor. Ever. Seriously. That counselor had no business anywhere near a school. If a child alleges abuse in the home, the very first phone call by law is supposed to be to the police/CPS, not the alleged abusers. FPEEP, this entire thread is making me so goddamn mad already, but your post had me screaming at my monitor. We were all taking a class trip to the school library. Librarian said I couldn't drink my water in the library. No problem, I told her. I tightened the lid and put it in my bag. Out of sight. Nope. She grabbed my bag, attached to me, ripped it open, and grabbed my water bottle and slam dunked it in the trash can, telling me I said no. Like I was a dog. All 15 of us just stared at her, and I wasted my $1 to have my water trashed. Reading all these stories really jogs my memory. So much SPEEP to put up with. Had a similar experience senior year in high school. Final semester. With my football career over, I decided to audition for the school play and made it in. It was going to be a late night of rehearsal, so I went ahead and got a Dr. Pepper out of a vending machine. I was also suffering from partial deafness in one ear thanks to an infection, which is relevant. In a hoe. I was walking to the drama room, first room on the left, and apparently the new VP, already known for his power trips, was somewhere to my right trying to tell me I couldn't bring the drink down the hallway. But I couldn't hear him. So naturally he walked up behind me, grabbed the bottle from my hand, and tossed it in the trash. I casually apologized and explained my temporary partial deafness, and that the school was made aware of it. I pull the Dr. Pepper from the garbage. So he starts raving at me, grabs me by the arm and tosses away my Dr. Pepper to the floor this time. And calls the cops on duty over. Tells me I have no reason to still be on campus, and if I don't leave now, and if he ever sees me there after school again, I'll be arrested for trespassing. Thankfully, my parents, the principal, and the drama teachers all come down on him. Principal chewed his ass out in front of me, told him he has zero authority to do any of what he did or threatened to do, and then he even bought me a new Dr. Pepper. After all the SPEEP I dealt with in school, it's kinda nice that this last run-in with authority ended on such a wonderful, justice boner-inducing note.